Welcome to The Blast Zone, the podcast where we dig up the bombs that shook Hollywood and try to find out why they went up in flames. This week, it's the most annoying snowman in movie history, at least until Olaf came along. This is Jack Frost.
Tis the season to be jolly.
Let's go!
Motherfucker go boom. Motherfucker go. Motherfucker go.
Welcome to The Blast Zone.
Welcome to the Blast Zone.
We are not a podcast about bad movies. We are a podcast about movies that did badly.
That's right.
I am Jon Drake, in-house film critic of my Letterboxd account.
And I'm Ian Dukes. I'm a person with thoughts and feelings, and some of them are about movies.
Movies like Jack Frost, which we'll be talking about today. But first, very exciting news. I hinted at the end of last week's episode. We have a special guest this week. It's your friend and mine. You know her from our Malignant episode, our That's My Boy episode, and now our Jack Frost episode. So banger after banger. Esteemed internet personality. You can find her on Twitter at 2Saddington. It's Hayley. Hayley, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. Jack Frost is just like an untapped wealth of discourse. So I'm excited.
Yes.
This is the place I want to be talking about Jack Frost.
I'm 80% certain we had another movie in this slot until we were just chatting or something, and you were like,
Yes.
you guys got to cover Jack Frost. And I was like, all right, I'm swapping it out.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Yeah, that was my long con.
So we're only covering this because of you. So there's going to be some blame coming your way later. But
Hell yeah.
before all that, Ian, I don't want to gloss over how you're doing this week because the listeners need to know. Are you hanging in there?
I have a question. Is it too soon to be overwhelmed by Christmas? Too early? Because I am.
No.
Cards, gifts, decorations. I'm behind on everything. I'm feeling Santa's hot breath down my neck, suffocating me.
Some people pay extra for that.
Send me tidings of comfort and joy to get me through this season because I'm a little stressed.
That will happen. I'm caught up on gift shopping. I just am way behind on wrapping. I haven't freestyled in weeks, and that's
Oh, sure.
taking a toll on my mental health.
What a shame.
Also, I haven't put any of my presents in their paper. No, yeah, the Christmas season can be stressful, but it's all about spreading cheer and spending time with family. And also the holiday season, not just the Christmas season. We're inclusive here.
That's right.
If it sounds like I'm talking in my NPR voice, it's because I lost my voice for a large chunk of this week and I'm just getting it back. But that's just going to make this feel like a more sophisticated podcast, I think. Let's talk about a Jack Frost here. Now, before we get into Jack Frost, we know the drill now. I panicked because I forgot to remind Hayley about this, but she's a pro.
Yeah.
She remembered. So, Hayley,
Exactly.
you've got a bombshell to drop on us for show and tell this week. Why don't you tell us what you saw?
Last night, I saw this little doozy called Avatar 2, oh my God, I can't even say it. Way of the Water.
The way of
The Way of, oh my God, thank you for
a
telling me.
way of the
actual-
water.
Wait, why
We-
did-
we
Some
got
combination.
I saw
Yeah.
Avatar 2. Let's just make it simple. It was a delight.
Really?
Yeah, I can't say much more because I don't like spoilers. It's far too soon to like really get into it, but I can say for a 3+ hour movie, it did not feel like that.
I was
And-
wondering why you were dressed all in blue with your braid and everything. But now, were you a fan of the original Avatar or were you cold to that one?
I enjoyed it. I only saw it a couple times, but I loved the concept and just seeing how obsessed James Cameron is with this whole world is really fun to me. I feel like with this one, there's a lot of nods to Titanic. I feel like I might be projecting, but it is about water.
He's
Yeah.
a water nut.
He really is.
I'm definitely planning to see it in the theaters. It feels like an event, like something
Definitely.
you'd regret missing. But I'm not a fan of the first one. I don't know if I've ever seen the
Oh,
whole thing.
Really?
Yeah, I definitely tried to sit down and watch it, but at home. Like when 3D TVs were new, we got one at my apartment and we all put on our stupid little glasses and tried to watch Avatar. And I think we tapped out after like 40 minutes.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, this feels important. I mean, our Hayley recommendation is high praise. So that puts a little more confidence.
Well, I did recommend Jack Frost.
Oh.
You
Okay.
recommended we cover it. You didn't say it was good.
Okay,
So
fair.
It will be fun to talk about, I assure you. Ian, what have you got for us this week?
I watched something that's also pretty new. It's called The Banshees of Inisherin, if you've heard of it.
Ooh.
Brand new movie
Yes.
by Martin McDonagh.
Banger.
It's also available on HBO right now, as is Jack Frost. So if you're sitting down with the family for a holiday movie, you got some choices. It starts as a really cute, small, delightful movie. It's a little bit absurd, and then it builds from there. Colin Farrell's great. Brendan Gleeson, I'm a fan of those guys. Barry Keoghan, as he seems to pronounce it, is
Weird little guy.
playing a weird little guy in this for some reason. I don't know. He's
Yeah.
taking us
Who'd have thunk it?
It's weird and it's little, but it's great. Carrie Condon is fantastic. Small cast, but they're all great. You know, I like a movie where you don't know what it is. You don't know where it's going to take you when you turn it on, and it hooks you in. And this movie does exactly that. Took me somewhere that I absolutely didn't see coming. Is it a heartwarming period drama that's good for some family holiday fun? No, it's not that. but it's really good. Check it out if you can.
I don't know if Martin McDonagh's made a movie I would recommend watching with your whole family, but I'm a fan of, I mean, I love In Bruges. In Bruges is like one of my 15 favorite movies, probably.
Okay.
And Seven Psychopaths, I enjoy despite its flaws. Three Billboards, I'm iffy on. I think it has its merits, but it's also not a total success. But yeah, this cast, this director, how could it be bad? I'm going to have to check it out real soon.
It's neat.
So you guys brought some very topical, very fresh material here. So I decided I would do what I always do and be completely non-topical. I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I was rewatching the show Fargo because I was sick and I like to rewatch stuff I'm familiar with when I'm sick. You know, your brain's a little foggy and you don't want to take in new information. And seasons 1 and 2 of that show have always been comfort food for me. But seasons 3 and 4 left me cold on my first viewings and I never went back to them. So I thought I would give them another chance. And I rewatched both those seasons and I came away split. I have newfound admiration and respect for season 3, and I think I will put it into my rotation of rewatching Fargo. I think Carrie Coon, who I know we're both a big fan of, is great in it. Ewan McGregor gives a pretty good performance. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is great, but David Thewlis is just phenomenal in it, and Michael Stuhlbarg, like great performances. And then season 4 still sucks. So I was not mistaken on my first viewing of that. Even though it has maybe my favorite cast of any of the Fargo seasons, it's just lackluster writing and material, and it struggles to figure out what it wants to say. Like every other season really has a point of view and a thesis statement, and season 4 is just by far the weakest of any of them. Even though it's got Timothy Olyphant playing a fucking U.S. Marshal, you know, you think that would be a recipe for...
It's kind of your thing.
That's my wheelhouse, but no, it didn't work for me. Season 3, newfound admiration and love. Season 4 still sucks. But season 5's coming relatively soon, so we could see where we end up.
Man, hope they snap back.
Me too. But now it's time to talk about Jack Frost, a movie I remember existing when I was like 12 years old, but never saw. Also notable for the fact that, as you pointed out in our group chat, there was a eerily similar movie cover for a 1997 film called Jack Frost, but about a serial killer snowman, because he's chillin' and killin', I believe is the tagline of that. So I always got those two movies mixed up. And then I had a little bit of a freak out the other day because I was like, oh shit, I hope we all watched the same Jack Frost.
Seriously.
Luckily we all did. But Hayley, since you recommended this movie, why don't you tell me, like, how did you find this movie? When do you remember seeing it for the first time and what drew you to it?
Honestly, I think I literally saw it for the first time last year. Despite that, I've known about it for so long. I think it just always fascinated me. A movie about some guy's dad dying and becoming a snowman because he like wasn't a good dad. Just the premise of it was enough to really draw me in, and it definitely delivered.
It definitely delivers upon that promise of being absurd and weird.
There's definitely a snowman in there that used to be a kid's dad.
I'm not going to ask Ian to do this, but I just want him to keep the request in the episode so that people know I asked for it, but it's too much work. But every time we say snowman, I would love to drop another Young Jeezy ad lib in over it, because you know Jeezy the snowman.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's right. One of those. But don't do it, actually. Just put the request in the episode so people know that I asked for something irrational. Ian, what about you? Do you remember this movie coming out, or like did you discover it when we first started talking about it?
When the name came up, I could picture the box cover, the snowman face. Was familiar, and that's kind of it. I managed to somehow avoid this my whole life until now, and now here we are.
Thanks, Hayley.
You're welcome. So glad I could help.
I was like, what the fuck are we going to talk about for an hour and 10 minutes? But when I was digging into the making of this movie, it's kind of a comedy of errors in some way. Cast one actor, made this whole big snowman prop look just like him and have his movements and mannerisms, and he drops out, and somehow the $40 million budget they allotted becomes 85. Like, you want me to just talk about it? Should I get into the making of the movie?
Please.
Yeah, let's set the stage.
This is one of my most surprisingly interesting. The 1994 Tim Allen Christmas comedy The Santa Claus proved audiences had an appetite for magical Christmas shenanigans that are poorly explained, earning $190 million against a budget of $22 million. Warner Brothers saw this and wanted in, conjuring up some half-assed story about a blues rock playing dad who fucking dies in a car crash on Christmas and comes back a year later as a snowman because of a harmonica.
That plot point blows, but we don't need to harp on it.
Named Jack Frost, first-time director Troy Miller, an experienced director of TV and stand-up comedy, was hired to direct the film, which at the time had a $40 million budget. Written by Mark Steven Johnson and rewritten by experienced Disney scribe Jonathan Roberts, stand-up comic Jeff Cesario, and some guy named Steve Bloom who doesn't have a Wikipedia page, the movie was able to cast George Clooney fresh off his move from TV to movies after he crushed it in the absolutely phenomenal Out of Sight, which I wish we were talking about instead.
Me too. The moment this movie came on screen, I wished it was Out of Sight.
Other actors considered were Kurt Russell, Billy Bob Thornton, Mel Gibson, Dennis Quaid, and Kevin Costner. Billy Bob was also considered for the role of sidekick Mac MacArthur, which eventually eventually went to Mark Addy. And what kind of shape was Billy Bob Thornton's career in 1997 to be considered for the third lead in this movie?
Some folks call it a slow career. I call it a dead career.
Kelly Preston was cast as the titular Jack Frost's wife, Gabby, and Jim Henson's Creature Shop got to work making an elaborate snowman model that looked and even moved just like George Clooney. Okay, now for the bad news. Clooney would drop out to make previous episode Batman and Robin and be replaced by Michael Keaton.
Isn't that ironic? Don't you think?
Filming would begin in Tucky, California in March 1998, and it's hard to find out why, but apparently the budget would balloon to a whopping $85 million during production and post-production. So now they needed a huge box office return for this to be a hit. With a seasonally appropriate release date of December 11th, 1998 set, a hefty marketing push was put behind the film, but the only problem, it's not very good. It currently has a 19% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It opened in third place with $7.1 million and had decent legs for a critically panned movie.
A snowman with legs, imagine that.
Posting respectable drops week over week in the 25 to 30% range, but it just couldn't overcome its bloated budget, eventually only making $34.6 million total and railroading Keaton's career for a while. We're only covering it because Haley asked nicely.
Oh my God, I'm a villain.
No, I'm glad we have a movie like this where we don't have to think about it very hard and could just be mean to it for a while. Like, talking about Children of Men is maybe more
Enriching.
fulfilling. Yeah. But it's not as fun as just being like, look at this stupid ass snowman. What's he fucking doing there?
Can I jump in with a little editor's note as the California kid here? Is Truckee, California.
Truckee. Okay, no, leave that in. We're not going to edit that out because my next thing was going to be you tell me about Truckee, California. Is it really quite as snowy as it seems in this movie?
Yeah, Truckee is basically Lake Tahoe. It's a little town just
is that like up in the Sierra
adjacent to
Nevadas and
Tahoe.
shit?
Yeah, big ski resort. It's in the Sierras and it's on the Nevada border.
Okay. Yeah, they filmed a couple scenes at Lake Tahoe, so I had a feeling it was up there, but I've never heard of fucking Truckee, California, obviously.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a big town.
It's not. I think it's a small little town that supports the resorts and skiing that's going on there.
It's probably a cute little downtown to walk around, though. It looked like it had a little thoroughfare.
It stood in perfectly well for a fake town, Medford,
Colorado, right? Yeah, it looked like Colorado. What do you think, Haley? Would you go to Truckee on vacation?
I would, just to visit the grave of Jack Frost. That's for sure. Pay my
Is it
respects.
just a puddle?
Yeah, it's just a puddle, depending on what season.
Puddle.
You raise a good point there. Like, he's buried there somewhere. In the movie, they skipped really fast from his death to one year later. They didn't do an obligatory scene where the widow is crying over the grave.
It's ostensibly a kid's movie. Like, how long do you want to dwell on the misery this family is going through? You know, they do not.
Well.
He veers off the road, and then isn't the next scene just the kid walking home from school, and the bullies are like, we can't even make fun of him anymore because his dad's dead.
What an incredible scene.
And the one Billy's like, oh, you're right. It's not even fun now.
And that bully also does not have a dad, which is so funny. They just made a point of giving that character no dad.
He needed to have one characteristic that makes him a bully. His dad's not around.
Did we learn that before the ending? Because it's like a key plot point at the end, but I'm like, they just made that
He
up
says it at that scene where they're like, his other friend, his
okay.
little lackey is like, we can't make fun of him. His dad's like, so what? I don't have a dad.
Oh, okay. Man, I missed so much in this movie. That's one of the main problems with this movie is it turns you off so fast, or at least that was my experience, that I couldn't take in half the information they were giving me because I was just not happy.
Don't bullshit me, Ian. Did you watch it twice?
I decided to give myself a little Christmas present. I watched it once all the way through, and then I watched a number of scenes and key moments a second time because I hate to not be prepared, but I couldn't stomach it 2 times all the way through.
What are the key moments of this movie? Him dying, him becoming a snowman, and then him dying.
Yeah.
Nothing happens in this hour and 40-minute movie.
It's not a lot. And yeah, it's all set up. It's half set up. And then the payoff runs by real fast, but it's not fun.
The synopsis for it's so much happens in the first third of this movie, quote unquote. It's only the third in terms of like story momentum. It's not a third in terms of actual runtime because pre-Jack Frost takes up so long in this movie before he becomes the fucking snowman. And then none of it matters. Do you want to start going through the story? Is it time yet? Or was there anything else we had to cover before we did that?
I wanted to mention the taglines because I'm obsessed with movie taglines. I think they're so fun to look at. And this one had 2. You weren't going to address those, were you? I didn't steal your thunder.
We were not.
Okay,
No,
perfect.
I want to hear this.
All right. So number 1, he's the world's coolest dad and he's going to prove it. I can't even pause to laugh, even though it's just horrible. Okay. Number 2, Jack Frost is getting a second chance to be the world's coolest dad if he doesn't melt first.
Ooh, man, they
Oh my
really leaned on
God.
the cool puns here.
Right? Don't you hate when your dad melts?
Yeah. Wait a minute. That's not a wordplay. Like being the world's coolest dad. That's a wordplay joke. Okay, I accept that. It's terrible, but it's a joke.
Right,
If he
it
doesn't
works
melt
in
first
theory.
is just a literal thing. Is there a second meaning to melting as a dad? I don't think so.
As the only dad on this call, I think I am qualified to say no, that is not a thing. It's not a saying or
Okay.
an idiom of any sort.
That's like, I hope nobody gulps us. That's what that sounds like. Unless he melts first, just leave him by the side of the road.
They put as much effort into the taglines as they did the movie, and I think that's beautiful.
I'm surprised they didn't go with like, he's the man. No, he's the snowman. Because they
That
were
was-
so proud of themselves for that line in the movie.
There's that line and one other line that just really killed it. I don't know if you're going to get to it. I'll hold off for now.
If we don't,
Yes.
make sure you bring it
Don't
up.
worry, I have it written
Yes,
in caps on my notes.
Okay, good, good. There's a lot of really bad lines in this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to blame Jeff Cesario. I don't know who wrote those, but he was in the second round of writers. I'm like, they hired a 90s stand-up. I remember that name as somebody that I'd seen on The Tonight Show.
He
But then
wrote
they-
for a lot of those shows, yeah.
Okay, but this was not Tonight Show quality jokes. This was kid stuff. It's got to be on purpose, but it's so weird. Like you said, they were trying to capitalize on the Santa Claus, which, okay, I haven't seen that, but that's got to have had something more going for it for adults. But this movie does not. This movie is not for you if you are older than 9, because the jokes it keeps throwing at you are like just so cringy unless you're a little kid.
I think it's easier to write jokes for the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie too, because it's just Tim Allen in a fat suit. Like you can't go back and reanimate the snowman to make him say different stuff. You're
Yeah.
locked in.
They should have
It's,
had the
and-
script in order first before.
But like a big running joke in this movie is like, Mac's really sleepy. Once he's napping, you can't wake that guy up. And it's like, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that felt
Well.
more like a personal attack than a joke.
Let the man take a nap. That's Bobby B, by the way. Did you guys know that? Do you know that's fucking Bobby Baratheon from Game
Yeah,
of Thrones?
Yes.
Oh,
Baratheon.
I love Mark
That's
Addy.
King Robert, man. Yeah, Mark Addy rules. First, I was like, is he trying to do an American accent in this? And I was like, no, okay, he's supposed to be his usual British self. Thank God.
What a road from here to the Iron Throne, man.
Took a stop in Bedrock on the way, too.
Oh, wild.
He replaced
Mark
John
Addy.
Goodman in the second Flintstones movie, and that derailed his career for a little while. We could talk about that one next time if you want, Haley, Flintstones 2, whatever it's
Oh,
called.
yeah.
Oh my God,
Yikes.
sign me
Born to
up.
be Bedrock or some
Honestly,
shit.
I'm there.
We're gonna recruit Haley to make all the worst movies tolerable. Like whenever we have to cover one that we just really dread, we'll be like, just put Haley on it.
We gotta, no, she's
what I'm
doing
here
a good
for.
one next time.
Fine, Haley, you can do one good one, and then we're doing
Okay.
Flintstones too.
Hell yeah, sign me up.
All right. Did you want to walk us through the first part of the movie?
Yeah, let me jump on in.
All right.
Jack Frost, played by Michael Keaton, is an aspiring blues band leader in the town of Medford, Colorado. Jack is constantly touring with his band and hustling for a record deal, and his frequent absence at home puts a strain on his relationship with his wife Gabby, played by Kelly Preston, and his young son Charlie, played by Joseph Cross. When Jack abandons them on Christmas to chase a meeting with a record exec, he quickly regrets it and turns around and heads for the family cabin. But on the snowy mountain road, Jack crashes his car and dies. 1 year later, on the following Christmas, Charlie is still trying to get over his father's death, so he builds a snowman and puts his dad's hat on it. But later that night, the snowman comes to life, inhabited by Jack's undead spirit, and reveals himself to his terrified son.
It really does sound like a horror movie when you put it that way. Like his son is rightfully freaked out for that whole thing. But all right, so let's start from the beginning. I'm getting ahead of myself. He's not a snowman yet. He's just a rockin' dad, a blues man through and through.
Poor
And,
man.
That intro song that he sings, isn't it just Frosty the Snowman?
It's Frosty the Snowman.
The worst cover I can imagine. It's like if they were doing like a Kohl's commercial and they needed like a Razzie cover of Frosty the Snowman, and that's exactly what it sounds like to me.
I'm fucking shocked they didn't license that song to J.C. Penney for like commercials. They needed to make money somehow on this movie. It would have been a great
Honestly.
way to go about it.
Man, you couldn't even sell corduroys with that shit. That was bad. And I was instantly incensed at this movie because the audience does not react like human beings. It's like, it's one thing to go, okay, here's a regional blues band doing a Christmas cover at their show. How do human beings react to that? They go, oh, cute. It's a Frosty the Snowman. And the blues guy I like is doing it in a bluesy style. They don't lose their fucking minds hooting and hollering and being blown away by every note that each musician squeezes out of their instrument. It's like, it lost me right away. It is not in a reality that I am familiar with.
Wow.
Maybe they play that song all the time because they're the Jack Frost band, so the crowd just goes wild for it now.
You think he does Christmas music year round? You get Christmas blues
Maybe.
songs from this band?
That's his gimmick. But I love that the band is just like 6 dudes and then one lady playing the violin like they're fucking Arcade Fire. Like, why are there so many people on stage? It's a huge bait for a blues rock outfit. It confused me.
Feels very unnecessary overall. But is Michael Keaton a singer at all? Is like, I know so little about him. Okay. Because I would have
He wrote some of those. He wrote some of the songs for the Jack Frost band too. Like he was, I think that's how they got him to do it. It's like you can show off your blues chops.
Oh,
See,
man.
I didn't know that, and I wouldn't have believed you, honestly, after seeing that movie.
He's not, he does a passable version of an actor trying to be a blues man, but you wouldn't want to hear him sing. I'm sorry, Michael Keaton, who I like him as an actor, but I guess
I
not
do
as
too.
a singer.
We praised him in other episodes before. Once he's the snowman too, like he fucking nails his performance, and you can tell he was reading his lines to a brick wall, and he did not give a shit. Like he was just cashing that check. His delivery is so flat once he's the snowman, but he's doing his best when he's a real human man. He's trying.
I think he knows what movie he's in. He's a smart guy.
But then we spend about 40 minutes more or less with the movie just beating us over the head that like he's kind of an absentee dad, but also he's a really great guy, but also he sucks because he's an absentee dad. But isn't he nice when he is around, but he sucks. So it's like the movie's really, you could get this across with a couple throwaway lines in one scene of him missing a hockey game or some shit, but the movie just is like spinning itself in circles trying to drive home this one point.
And just when you think it's done, it does a whole other montage scene of a simultaneous hockey game with the dad in the recording studio that has no point. I couldn't figure even out what they were doing at that point.
I feel like it's crucial plot development, or at least developing the character, getting to see him with his corny dad jokes. It was very important. The scene where they're making a snowman together. I said nose, not hose, and tries to put a dick on the snowman instead of a nose. Like, you want to miss out on that just so you can get to the action of the film? No thanks.
You got a point.
It's a good point. There's actually a lot of genital-based humor in this movie because when he's a snowman, he goes, "Oh no, my balls," like all the time. Like,
right?
My other ball, like I lost my ball. He keeps bringing up his balls.
Yeah, it feels too absurd.
And Henry Rollins is the one that, what is with the casting of this movie? We've Henry Rollins and 3 of the Zappa children.
Which no one would know. I recognized Dweezil, but I didn't recognize Moon Unit and Ahmet.
Sorry, did you say Moon Unit?
Yeah, that's his sister.
Okay.
Yeah, Moon Zappa was like some kind of personality in the 80s.
I think I knew her as Moon Zappa, but I know her full name was Moon Unit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Isn't that like that sounds like the things they sent up onto the drill into the asteroid in Armageddon? Send the Moon Unit, like it's an ATV equipped with a drilling apparatus.
That's because I'm mad at her. I used her full Christian name.
She's in trouble.
Moon Unit Zappa, get your butt in here.
But is this like an in-joke? Because I guess the director is like a comedy guy. He'd been around the comedy scene for a while, but the Zappa fam,
that's a music
like Dweezil
family.
Zappa's not really like a comedy guy. You could say Frank Zappa had like comedy aspects to his music, but Dweezil's were more, he was like about the chops, really, I thought.
That's what I thought. Speaking of the cast, what do you guys think of Charlie? I was actually going to step up and defend Joseph Cross. As bad as these scenes are, he makes stuff work that I'm like, he just got thrown a line that was like, oh my God, how's this going to work? And then he managed to deliver stuff. And I'm like, oh, he's kind of a real person in this movie.
Yeah, he's not bad. And I think you can see why he stuck around Hollywood. He's one of the rare actors that was able to make the transition from child star to actual adult actor. And I'll go over some of his credits once we're done covering the story of the movie. But yeah, I think that speaks to his talent. He's believable as much as anyone can be in this role, better than a lot of the grown-up actors, I would say. How'd you find Charlie? Haley, what'd you think of him?
I thought he did it super well for the circumstances. I can't imagine auditioning for this movie, being like, I want that lead part, being excited about getting cast in a dead dad snowman movie. But he took what he had and made it work. And he kind of like balances out the absurdity that makes you question if it is a kid's movie. Some child actors are just annoying as hell on screen, but I actually wanted to root for him most of the time.
Yeah, that's an achievement.
He plays kind of the malaise and the melancholy of the kid after his dad dies, like really well, like because he's not playing it the way most kids would play being sad, where they're like dramatically sad. He just seems like a depressed 20-something. He's just kind of like walking around. I don't even want to be here anymore. I don't even want to be around, man. Like he's, which is, I think is more of a realistic depiction of sadness than what we usually get, which is like over the top acting out.
That's true. They gave him one over-the-top scene where he starts slamming the snow shovel and crying. But other than that, like there are just takes of his face where you're like, oh, this kid's kind of sad.
Yeah,
he didn't have to say anything.
Non-verbal acting is a skill. He's got it. We're talking about him being sad when his dad dies. Let's talk about the sequence of events that leads to his dad's death. Because what a fucking strange scenario this is. They got to drive through this fucking snowy mountain pass. I think they're on the way to where are they trying to get to?
I was going to say where they're really going, which was Aspen, Colorado, I think was where the
Right.
record executive party was supposed to be.
They're trying to play this gig at a record executive party in Aspen, and they have to drive through this fucking snowy mountain pass on Christmas. And after driving for what seems like hours and hours, Michael Keaton's just like, fuck it, man. Let's turn around. I'm going home. I'm going to see my family. I'm going to drive through the worst blizzard in the history of Colorado, and I'm not going to stop and wait for it to pass. I'm just going to keep going in this 1970s rear wheel drive. What is it, like an Oldsmobile? It's probably got bald ass tires. I'm going to brave this mountain and make it happen. And of course, he fucking veers off the road and dies. But first of all, the balls on these record executives. What are you, blackmailing them to get a record contract?
Real weird, shady explanation. Like the family's about to head out to the cabin on Christmas Eve so they can spend Christmas Day together. And he gets a call from one of the Zappa kids, I forgot which one, is playing the junior A&R guy. And he comes off and he's like, the label president is 99% sure he's going to sign us. He loves us so much. He heard our tape. He went crazy. But he did happen to throw down one ultimatum. If we don't meet him at the top of a mountain on Christmas night, the deal is off. And you know how these record executives are with their crazy ultimatums and snowy mountaintops. So sorry, you guys, I got to go.
Is this record executive Krampus, like the mythical beast of Christmas, trying to lure them to some kind of setup? What is this?
It's like a Bond film, the final action scene, basically, but instead it's just some guy dying in a ditch.
So strange. Also, do we buy that record executives are beating the doors down of like a throwback blues regional band in 1998? Was there any equivalent artist that was making waves commercially at the time?
No.
It's just absolutely no.
The answer is no.
No, but like, I'm still stuck on who's this goddamn president of this record company. It's Christmas Eve. He not only told the Jack Frost band, Jack mentions it's them versus 3 other bands. He fucking, on Christmas Eve, called 4 different bands and said, get to my mountaintop lair.
Set up an impromptu battle of the bands.
Yes.
Get to my lair before tomorrow night, or I shall curse ye. And his curse came true. They should have shown him like in his lair laughing as Jack Frost went off the cliff, because there was some arcane magic at work here, I think.
I think I know what happened. I think the record executive was actually the Balrog of Moria. And he was trying to send them through this mountain so that Mark Addy would be like, we should go through the mines of Moria, and then lure them into this trap so he could activate his ancient evil. But instead, he just drives off a cliff like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, but it was over quick.
What I would love to see is just use the entire movie up until the point where he crashes and then just switch it to Misery, but it's Michael Keaton being held hostage by a snowman. There's a lot of potential there.
That would have been awesome.
Or just have it fade to black while Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want by the Smiths plays. And it's just a short film that's really sad.
Honestly, that would get an Oscar for sure.
Right? That seems prestige-y enough. All right, so then let's talk. I guess we have to at least touch on how he becomes a snowman, even though it's pretty unclear.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine.
That's exactly what the screenwriter said. I guess we have to touch on how he becomes a snowman, don't we?
Right, like we have to explain it a little, but they barely do the barest of minimums to try to give us a solid reasoning for what happens here. The harmonica that Jack had gifted Charlie is really old, apparently. I hope he fucking like rinsed it in peroxide before he gave it to him.
Oh my God.
And
Have you either of you guys played harmonica or been in a band with a harmonica player?
I've fucked around on one, but I've never like seriously played it.
Same,
Okay.
yeah.
If you're around a harmonica that gets played a lot, they're fucking nasty as hell. And that is the grossest thing you could do.
You're just spitting into it.
Yeah. They don't last very long for that exact reason. They just get gummed up and
they're also like
fucked up.
$10, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was laughing because there's a scene where he gifts it to him. Charlie is all excited. And then the moment after he hands it to him and Charlie picks it up, he goes, that's one of my really old harmonicas. Just wanted Charlie to go, ew, and just drop it. Dad, what the fuck?
It's like giving somebody a bottle of water and you're like, that's my oldest bong water. I've been saving it for years.
Anyway, it was magical. Who knew?
Yeah, he puts the hat and the scarf on the snowman that he makes out of like, he like angry makes a snowman. It's not like something you do when you're angry, but he just goes out. He's so sad and upset.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to build a fucking snowman to take my mind off things. Like, he's not old enough to just drink. So I need
Build a
something else
snowman.
to build a snowman. And then after he builds it, he puts the hat and the scarf on and he blows the harmonica and the snowman comes alive. And the movie doesn't try to give us any more explanation than that.
Yeah.
There's like a swirling of snow around the snowman that's magical, but was it the hat and the scarf that did that? Was it the harmonica? We never really find out.
Usually in Christmas movies, there's at least a little bit of a reference to something. What are the rules of this magic? Jack throws it off as an aside. By the way, that harmonica is magic, and if you ever play it, I will hear it. I missed that the first time through. And I don't know, there's little colored lights flying around. I'm like, what are those lights? Are those?
Those are 10 million fireflies.
Damn it.
Oh.
You stole my joke.
Really? Same page, Haley. Same page. And then once he's the snowman, the movie stops being sad completely. And you had a note here that it just goes into pure slapstick Three Stooges comedies for the next like 10 minutes, which goes on way too long.
It's so long. I realized it. I'm like, oh, that's weird. They're going really cheesy with the comedy after what was pretty sad up to this point. So I started to try to write down what happens in the scene. And it's so many things. The dog pees on him. And then also the dog steals his arm and runs away with it because it's a stick. And then he's dragged and gets an ice wedgie. And then he gets caught by a snowplow. And then the kid can't wake Mac up. So he's pushing an easy chair with the sleeping Mac to bar the door so his demon father can't come in.
I didn't know this kid was training for the world's strongest man to push sleeping Mark Addy across the fucking living room up to the door. Mark Addy has got to be pushing 280 in this movie.
Yeah.
He's a big dude.
He's a solid guy.
Doesn't he go frighten Henry Rollins during this time too? This all happens in the same night.
Sid Gronick.
Sid Gronick.
Thank
you,
I just kept repeating that to myself. They're so funny. I just love like these names. You got a guy named Jack Frost and then his old high school buddy, Sid Gronick.
He doesn't get many lines. Like we talk more about Sid than we do to him. Because Michael, he's just, oh, Sid's a great guy. He's a great guy. But everything we've learned about Sid is that he's a fucking weirdo.
He does get some kind of PTSD from seeing a snowman in real life because he can't even look at them later on in the movie, which is so funny that he had such a visceral reaction to it.
He won't even let the other kids on the hockey team mention the word snowman.
Can't say snowman, around Sid anymore. But just when you see Henry Rollins in a bit part in a film and he's getting shouty, you would kind of expect him to be a villain, but then he's not. He's just tortured by what he saw.
Tortured hockey dad.
He's doing like decent dramatic work in this movie for what he's in. This wasn't his move into acting because he'd already been in Heat. Heat was 95, I want to say. Okay. So I think he was starting to move into acting now, but this was probably a sizable role for him at the time. And he's honestly a good actor. I don't mind seeing Henry Rollins and stuff at this point. Never thought he was much of a vocalist, but he did enough for the music he was making. Not a Black Flag fan.
No, I was trying to think, have I ever actually heard a Black Flag song?
Or the Rollins Band was his more recent one, but that was not as good. All right, I'm sorry. I derailed the command.
I have his IMDb page pulled up. I'm like, okay, who is this man? trying to teach myself.
He was the lead singer of a very prominent anarchist punk band called Black Flag. I think he took over in the early 80s, maybe.
Okay.
All right. Good for him.
Now he's a strangely muscular hockey coach. All right, so should we get to the middle section of this movie where almost nothing happens?
Sure. Tell us what doesn't happen next.
Snowman Jack tries reconnecting with his son Charlie by helping him in a snowball fight against some bullies. And he teaches Charlie his signature hockey shot. But Jack refuses to reveal his new form to his wife or anyone else because of some reasons he has, I guess. So everyone thinks Charlie's grief has caused him to have a psychotic break. Sorry. Nevertheless, the sequence of events makes Charlie feel better about his dad and himself, and he rejoins the youth hockey team he had recently quit. That sounds like the ending of a Hallmark or like Lifetime movie, except like without the magical snowman part. Like something happens, he feels better about his relationship with his dad, and he rejoins his youth hockey team. The end.
Yeah.
But no, we still have more bullshit to go. Oh, you added this note after I added mine, but you referenced what I was talking about here. That like once Keaton's the snowman, all the life comes out of his performance.
Yeah, I'm glad you felt the same way because I'm like, is it just because his face is so big and
Clooney?
Cartoonish? Yeah, it's very Clooney. And like when you see a big animated smiling fat-cheeked snowman on screen, you expect it to act in a big way. You expect it to be larger than life. And Keaton, if anything, goes smaller. And I think he was just because he was like embarrassed about the stupid laugh lines that he had to say, or he just didn't care. He was just glazed over at this point. Like, fuck it. This is a dumb kid's movie. No one's going to watch this. It feels like he's swallowing his lines. There's a few that he puts a little energy into because you have to say like, big air, gnarly shred, dude. Like you can't say that totally cold and deadpan, but like it's the minimum effort.
You know what? We were talking about him in Morbius giving one of the worst performances ever, which was clearly not him in that suit. Like he clearly recorded those lines in a recording booth.
Yes.
Maybe he just sucks at voice work.
Yeah, maybe he freezes up when he's in the voiceover studio.
He needs to be on set doing the thing. When he's in the booth, he can't do it. Because Haley was right. Like he's going real goofy dad energy in the early parts of this movie. Really leaning into the dad jokes and being silly, and he's like a fun dad. But as Jack Frost, the magical snowman, he's pretty fucking boring.
I think it's probably because because he, as a snowman, lacks a prefrontal cortex. So I think that transition to snowman took away some of his personality. That's
He's
my
got,
theory. I can't confirm.
That's a good theory. He is noticeably missing some anatomy. One of the first things he does when he realizes that he's a
Where's this
snowman.
going, Ian?
No, it's going where you don't want it to go. I didn't catch this till the second time I watched this specific scene twice. He realizes he's a snowman, like when he first confronts Charlie in the window. The very first thing he does, he looks at his hands and then he looks down at his crotch and goes, oh no, like I have no penis. This is a big problem for me.
Snowmen be fucking.
Makes sense why he didn't want to see Gabby. He didn't want her to know his secret now.
That explains the whole thing. Is like, I can't talk to my wife until I find my snow penis. The whole thing just clicked in my head.
There's a deleted scene of him picking up an icicle and just like trying to like screw it onto his crotch area.
God.
Which, if you're wondering, it's the upper part of the lowest ball is where the
Lowest ball.
icicle would go.
Yes.
The upper
Mhm.
part of the lowest ball, not the
Where
lowest part of the
he
middle
put
ball.
the hose in the original
Right.
snowman they made.
That's right.
I feel like that was foreshadowing almost, which didn't
You're
need
right,
to be
that
made.
was.
We really don't care whether the snowman has a dick or not. The only
Right.
person it's consequential to is him. But
Yeah, I would say also Gabby, but I think she'd be aghast even if he did have a cock,
yeah.
a snow cock. She'd be like, I still love you, Jack, but no, I'm sorry. Not happening.
You guys maybe can help me out with this while we're on this topic of snowman digging balls.
Gladly.
You guys grew up in colder climates than I did, where snowmen are
Oh, hell yeah.
possible to make in the wintertime. Do you call the body segments of a snowman balls? Because
No.
Jack Frost certainly does.
No, that
No.
is not what
Okay.
you call the sections of a snowman in my experience. Haley, correct me if I'm wrong, though.
I'm trying to think what I actually called them. It's just a giant
It's just the
snowball.
bottom, the middle, and the top. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just the bottom, the middle, and the top.
If you're being real correct, then it's the torso or like the segments, the sections.
The
but-
thorax.
yeah, the thorax. There we go.
Can you imagine like a anatomically correct snowman? How frightening that would be! Like you had legs and torsos and arms, just like a scarecrow made of snow.
He makes so many jokes based on the idea that we all get. He calls the parts of his body balls, and he's like, "It's really nice that I can pull my balls apart." Or he just says things like when he like over a tree limb, it goes between his middle and bottom, and he's like, "Oh, look out, my balls are swinging." Or he keeps making really bad balls jokes. I'm like, balls? Why are we even saying balls?
I think it's interesting.
Balls. A song from 30 Rock.
They're all like there's a separate entity. The bottom and middle ball are like sentient because when he got separated,
Right, they have autonomy.
they all communicated. So it's just, when they came up with the design of this snowman, they went fully in like, okay, each section has a mind of its own. This is how it's going to work. And they just failed to bring that kind of energy to the plot or the dialogue. They're just so
Yeah.
They
focused
were more
on the
concerned with
snowman.
with the balls and what each one did. And
Yeah, ball mechanics. It's important, I guess.
yeah, you're right. Each section has autonomy when they're separate. It's like a zombie, you know, like when
Yeah.
the zombie
Oh,
hand can
that-
keep attacking you after you cut it off.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
It's just incredible, like, why so agile? I don't understand how he moves. But he was able to, like, that entire chase scene with the snowball
Yeah.
fight. There's so much to unpack in that, but also so little because you just really couldn't expect it.
We should explain this a little bit for people who
Yes.
haven't seen it, because we mentioned that this second act starts with this big snowball fight against the bullies.
Yeah, and I have a problem with your synopsis here. You
Okay.
say that Jack helped Charlie in a snowball fight against some bullies.
Yes.
Jack fucking
called it.
starts this snowball fight.
yeah, that's true. He's
He
the
cleans up his
instigator.
own mess. Charlie's walking away, and the bullies are like, whatever, leave him alone. His dad's dead. And then Jack, they can't see Jack because he's over a little ridge. He just starts fucking chucking snowballs at these bullies. And now Charlie's got
That's
to
true.
live with the mess that his dad has just made for him.
He started some big shit.
What if these bullies were like the ones from Stand By Me and Charlie gets stabbed walking to school one day next week? Like, he
like
might
he
have fucked
earned
this
it.
kid for life. But really, they should have just put Jack in the fucking oven. He's the real culprit.
Me and my friends would have put Jack in the oven. I tell you that
I can
much.
tell you that much.
Yeah, so he starts the snowball fight, and then to get out of it, they have to start snowboarding because it's a 90s movie for kids, and so it's time to shred. Dude, they split the toboggan in half, and then they're each on a snowboard, and
Just
they're doing
insane.
jumps, and I don't know my trick
I don't know
terminology,
your
but
snowboard terminology.
there's a lot of catching air.
While the worst fucking song ever made plays.
Yeah.
Is that Hanson? Is that what that middle song is? I know they're on the
Uh,
soundtrack. I didn't check who's singing.
Are
in
they?
that
Oh,
one,
it
but
might
it's-
Oh,
have
wow.
been.
That would
pretty
track.
bad.
My apologies to Hanson.
It's a terrible combo, that scene. It's like a cereal commercial in the middle. Like even the bad guy is
Yeah.
doing
It really is.
doing gnarly snowboard tricks.
Bop, more like flop.
Oh, got him. Fucking wreck. Oh, and this is where we get the line, you demand. No, you demand.
Oh.
No, I'm the snowman.
Oh.
Ooh.
That would pain me to say. Wow.
I think if they made this movie today, Michael Keaton would have demanded they make him say that with AI, so he didn't actually have to say the words.
He should have, yeah. But that was actually the closest thing to a joke. Out of all the things that get shouted on this downhill run, that at least has a joke format. It's really corny. But there's other times where they make Michael Keaton say things which you think are attempts at patenting a catchphrase. Like he does one jump and he goes, shredding. And then at the end he goes, big carving time. And they just sound like, what does he say? Did the computer generate some snowboard catchwords for him and he's just reading them off randomly?
It feels like they wrote out like cool 90s catchphrases and then translated them to another language and then translated them back to English. And they're like just reading them now.
You can hear your little 8-year-old nephew yelling these lines at you when you haven't seen the movie and being like, what the heck are you saying, dude? And he's like, it's from the movie. Big carving time. Like, stop saying that. That was the image in my head. An annoying little nephew yelling at me. Sorry, I stepped on you, Haley.
Yeah, you were saying something before Ian went on his rant.
No, I got so absorbed by Ian's rant, I forgot.
Sorry.
But needless to say, it's not something he says in that scene, but another physical joke is when they throw the 2 snowballs at his chest and he has snow boobies for a second. Just unbeatable stuff. It's like, oh, you thought this was for kids? Here's some 12-year-olds going down a giant mountain that came out of nowhere and snow boobs. We have it all.
Equal opportunity with the snow genitalia. We're not just doing guy parts. We're doing all the parts.
Oh my God.
Tune into Jack Frost 2 for snow butts.
He cups his snow boobs for a minute and he goes, maybe not. Like he's trying that on as a lifestyle. It was.
I can't say I'm surprised they did that, but it hurts nonetheless.
Ian, are you ready to take us home?
Here we go. Let's get in from the cold and get warm.
Let's melt.
So Snowman Jack decides he must see Charlie's hockey game. So he braves a sunny, warm day and goes into town to watch. Charlie scores the winning goal and they share the father-son moment both of them had been missing. But Jack is getting dangerously melty. So Charlie loads his dad on a Christmas tree truck headed back up into the mountains. Once at a sufficiently cold altitude, the 2 stowaways leap from the back of the speeding truck and find their way to the family cabin. From the cabin, Jack calls Gabby and tells her, don't worry, Charlie is safe. The next morning, Gabby arrives at the cabin in time to see for herself that the snowman really was Jack. And Jack's ghost reveals his true form to them both and bids farewell to his wife and son, knowing that he made everything in their world right again.
You strike me down. I shall become more than you could possibly imagine. I'll be a ghost for like 30 seconds and then I'll disappear forever. That line always bothered me from Obi-Wan and applies here too.
He's a serious Force ghost. That image came to mind. And then when I looked back at it a second time, I'm like, yeah, they really just with the colors of the eyes and the way the bluish glow they had, I'm like, it's total Force ghost.
And this was like a year after the re-released Star Wars with the updated special effects came out, I think.
Okay.
Which really was when I think the Force ghosts looked like that for the first time. Because in the original cuts, they were just like grainy.
Okay. They got more blue glow the second time around.
Yeah, definitely. That had to be an intentional, if not reference, then ripoff. They're either paying homage or just like ripping them off. You can't rip off Star Wars and expect people not to notice that. The 5 most famous movies of all time.
So Haley, you were talking about the mysterious way that Jack Frost moves around, because sometimes he's super nimble and obviously he's a badass snowboarder. But then when he decides he has to go to town, suddenly he cannot walk. He can't really move on his own. So he spends this whole scene where he tries to get that little family dog to pull him to town on a sled in a sort of a Grinchy kind of move. Tiny dog, big sled. It's another terrible joke. He's like telling the dog, there's going to be some cute poodles at the game. Then the dog goes, okay, and starts pulling him. Like, oh, finally, we're through with this weird scene. And then I had the biggest laugh because the dog starts trotting off screen, pulling the sled, and Jack pulls out a whip and just whips the shit out of the dog. You don't see it, but you hear the loudest whip crack as the scene cuts. And I'm like, holy fuck, he just fucking whipped that dog. That was so cold.
Oh, was that on purpose?
No, that was an accident. I apologize. Unlike this movie, I apologize for my bad puns.
I honestly didn't catch that, but I'm really glad because after the poodle joke, I was like rolled my eyes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to mentally check out until the next scene until like I get another cue where I can do the same thing.
Maybe he was like whipping the air.
That's what it, I mean, they didn't really mean it like he whipped the dog, but just because they cut to black on the sound of the whip, it was like, oh shit, what did he just do?
He's getting
Dog's
to that
limping
hockey
in the
game.
next scene.
Poor bloody dog.
But yeah, I'm struggling to think of things to say about this movie now.
Anybody feel brave enough to talk about any of these terrible scenes that are left?
I got it. I got you.
Go
more,
for it, Hayley.
More a trivia thing, but you know who was also at that hockey game, apparently, in the audience?
Who?
Paul F. Tompkins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw him in the
He is in the
credits, and-
cast.
Yeah, he's just at the hockey game, which is such a funny. I would love to ask him how he ended up there with the Zappa kids too.
Yeah, what? He must have been relatively young in 1998.
Yeah.
That's so, there he is, audience member.
Okay, should I make an
See if I-
unrealistic promise like your Young GZ commitment at the top of the show? I would like to try to dig up a frame where we can see Paul F. Tompkins
I'm on
screen
it.
and post that in the show notes.
I can watch it on the Plex and just find a spot where he's in and pause it. But
Yeah,
that'll-
just to snap a screenshot.
if I can even recognize him at that age.
Yeah.
I know Paul F. Tompkins is like a middle-aged man mostly.
Right.
He was 30, I guess, because he's
Oh, shit.
born in.
I guess he's always been 30.
68.
He was never younger
Yeah.
than 30, I think.
Born in 19. Wow, he's old as fuck. Sorry, Paul F. Tompkins. Well, then he probably looks like Paul F. Tompkins. I could probably find him.
Yeah, we'll find him. It's worth the search. You know, when you said that,
The juice is worth the squeeze.
the weatherman, I can't think of his name, but there's a weatherman shot late in the film with a comedy actor whose face you know.
Jay Johnston. Yeah.
Jay Johnston, who's another, that's a Mr. Show guy, just like Paul F. is. So there's some
Is-
kind
yeah,
of this.
yeah, he was from Mr. Show. And the director of this movie was from Mr. Show. That's where he got
that
his start.
explains it. So that's why Paul
Yeah.
F. is in there.
But isn't Jay Johnston like a fucking crazy QAnon guy now?
Oh, shit.
Right?
is
He was
that
Jimmy
true?
Pesto. He got kicked off. He got kicked
Oh
off
my
Bob's Burgers
God.
for being a fucking
No way.
maniac.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's a QAnon dude now.
The Jack Frost to QAnon pipeline.
Hold on, before I slander this poor man, let me make sure I'm remembering correctly. Oh shit, he was at the Capitol. He stormed
I
the
forgot.
Capitol.
Yeah, he
Oh my
was. You're
God.
right.
That's what happened.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
He stormed the Capitol.
So I think it's safe to say he's a QAnoner.
I guess in 2015 he popped up on the Gavin McInnes show. Yeah, he's
Oh,
been a friend
shit.
of Gavin McInnes since 2015 at least, and then he fucking stormed the Capitol and got kicked off Bob's Burgers. Thanks, Ian. Thanks for killing the move. The vibes are horrendous now.
That's a wild footnote. I was just like, hey, that guy looks like a comedian I know, the weatherman. And like,
Yeah. He was in Psych, I think, too. I remember from Psych.
Oh no.
okay.
Am I misremembering? Am I going crazy? Was that not him? Hold on.
Everyone's in psych. That would make sense.
He was in just about everything. Jeez, yeah. Community. Maybe he wasn't in Psych. Maybe I'm misremembering. But I've definitely seen him in a million things.
Yeah, I mean, he was a working
Not
dude.
anymore.
What a shame.
He popped up on a bunch of episodes of Arrested Development in the original run, I remember, too.
Okay.
Jay Johnston, from successful working comedian with a steady paycheck to far-right pariah.
RIQ to a good one.
RIQ. And then I did want to shout out the heart-to-heart that Charlie has with his bully. Well, I don't know if he ever gets a name. It doesn't
Yes.
matter. Because the bully agrees to load Jack into the back of this fucking truck. And Ian, you're the one who wrote the line down, so I'll let you deliver it if you like. Because why does he let him do it?
If you recall, we already talked about it. He also lost his dad. So he's sympathetic. And he goes, you know what? Snow dad's better than no dad.
Oh boy.
That was the tagline.
Womp womp.
That's what I thought should have been the tagline. How
That's the
that would
one.
be
Oh,
so
yeah.
good.
Okay. See, we did bring it up. That's way better than what was on the poster,
Yeah.
honestly.
Exactly. Also, right
We're on the
before
same
that,
page here.
that whole dialogue exchange was so funny because Charlie, to that kid, after begging for his help, he's like, you know what not having a dad is like. He just has to rub it in one last time. It's just so funny.
He's like,
to
I know
me.
I still have my dad, but he's not like how I remember him. So it's just the same as not having a dad at all.
Yeah.
Kid's like, well, let's not split hairs.
Oh, God.
And then just through pure coincidence, this Christmas tree truck happens to drive by what seems to be a fairly remote cabin in the fucking mountains of Colorado. Like,
Yeah.
what are the odds that they just are able to fucking snowman hop your way to the family cabin from wherever this truck drives?
And they don't tell you that they're doing that. So I thought it was like a Thelma and Louise moment. They're careening up the side of this steep mountain and then they're just like hold hands and they're like, let's jump for it. I'm like, oh shit, is this the end of Jack and Charlie? But they go sliding down a hill and then they're right at the cabin all of a sudden.
And then they have a heart to heart where the dad's like, look, son, I got to melt. I got to die. And the son, I don't know, maybe he thinks Jack is on the run for war crimes. He's like, we can go to Argentina when it's summertime here. And I was like, why are you going to Argentina?
Smart kid. He's got ideas.
But he also is, it's cold there when it's warm here. And I'm like, kid, you don't know shit about Argentina. Fuck out of here. He's like trying to say, and the dad's just like, nope, sorry, got to die. Like, I'm putting in zero effort to stay with you.
I mean, he did that originally.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's literally making the wrap it up sign with his finger. Okay, it's time for me to go. You got to get on on with your life, buddy?
I'm gonna wait for your mom to get here, see if I can like figure out something to do with her one last time. I don't know. We'll try some shit out. But once I see your mom, it's Splitsville for me, kid. And then he becomes a forest ghost, and that's the end of the fucking.
Forest
Yeah.
Ghost, yeah.
No, but
Be
Haley, you're right.
honest.
It was like his old dysfunction came back. He's like, oh, my wife's here, my kid. There's nothing. There's no sex and drugs and rock and roll. Like, guys, I need to hit the road. I've got an executive to meet.
Man, do play board games?
Right. I can't avoid my responsibilities as a snowman, so I'm just going to die instead.
My responsibilities include melting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't try to become a touring snowman rock band.
That
If he
could have
could still
worked.
play the harmonica.
It would have been more fun. God,
Yeah.
have a sense of humor. This movie is, except for ball jokes, it's too sincere.
You didn't think the ball jokes were sincere enough?
Yeah, they weren't as touching as I'd hoped,
So that's Jack Frost. Do you guys want to hear where some of the people involved with making it ended up?
besides the Capitol.
Besides the Capitol on January 6th? Yeah. So let's start with the director, Troy Miller. Like I said, he's well known for doing TV and stand-up specials. His TV resume is pretty impressive. He did Mr. Show, a lot of Mr. Show. He did a lot of Flight of the Conchords, which I'm a big fan of. A bunch of Bored to Death. And I feel like we just talked about Bored to Death with somebody else recently, some writer that worked on it. That's a good show, though. Jason Schwartzman, Zach Galifianakis on HBO from like the late aughts, I want to say. Parks and Rec. Yeah. And then he's also done some bad stuff like the Jenny McCarthy Show, Viva La Bam, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show with Captain Lou Albano, I think.
Yikes.
He also directed Run, Ronnie, Run. Do you guys know about Run, Ronnie, Run?
I vaguely remember.
It was the
That was
David Cross.
right?
Yeah, Ronnie was the character that I think was in some Mr. Show sketches. It was like a very tortured production trying to get it to the screen. It ended up being terrible, but it was like the Mr. Show movie that they never got like the release they wanted, but it sucked. But it was like sabotaged at every turn, so it was always going to suck. Might be a fun episode just to talk about how fucking tortured it was trying to get that movie made and released. Ended up like coming and going and no one noticed. And then he made the fucking terrible Dumb and Dumber prequel, Dumb and Dumberer, When Harry Met Lloyd, if you guys remember that movie.
I've actually seen that one. I haven't seen
I have
Dumb and
too.
Dumber,
Not in the theater.
but
What?
me neither. Yeah, I know. I haven't seen the original, but I've seen the sequel, unfortunately.
Haley, please bring it for show and tell to your next appearance.
Okay.
Bring the original Dumb and Dumber. That would be
All
a fun experiment.
Deal.
He directed a Kathy Griffin documentary in 2019, but that's his only movie since 2003, which was Dumb and Dumberer, which was a big. Actually, Dumb and Dumberer got horrible reviews, but I think it made like a tiny bit of money. But he's back to directing stand-up specials and TV shows now, so he stays busy. But he had a string of pretty disastrous movie attempts, so it makes sense that he went back to what felt comfortable and safe.
That's what I would do.
Mark Steven Johnson wrote the Grumpy Old Men movies and directed Simon Birch, if you guys remember Simon Birch.
Nope, sorry.
He would then go on to direct Daredevil and Ghost Rider, When in Rome, Killing Season, Finding Steve McQueen, and Love Guaranteed. To save you some time, none of these are any good.
Okay.
Jonathan Roberts, I mentioned, he did some Disney stuff. He co-wrote the screenplays for Lion King, James and the Giant Peach, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, The Emperor's New Groove, and Monsters, Inc. So he's got some credits, but they were all like uncredited edits, like minor rewrites. Some of that stuff he actually wrote. Some of it was just like they brought him in at the end to do a little touch-up work. Jeff Cesario, we mentioned, does stand-up, writes for Late Night. He's still working in that sphere. Steve Bloom, no idea what that guy's up to. Can't find anything on him.
Best of luck, Steve, wherever you are.
Wherever you may be. Oh, see, I have it in my notes here, Truckee, but in my monologue, I wrote Tucky.
Oh, yeah, it was just a little typo that's.
But it spurred discussion. I should put typos in my monologue more often because then we'll get some material out of it. This was kind of the downslope of Keaton's career in the 90s. I don't know how much this had to do with that. It's hard to find a lot of retrospectives on the fucking Jack Frost movie. There's not a lot of material out there.
No.
A shame.
But I know I want an oral history of Jack Frost so we can find out where all the fucking $85 million went. But
It was a front.
so maybe there was some money laundering going on. Listen to the movies he made directly leading up to this. Multiplicity, which your mileage may vary, but I like Multiplicity. It's a fun little silly movie. Jackie Brown, Desperate Measures, and Out of Sight. Now, he's got a small role in Out of Sight, but still, Out of Sight's like a top 5 movie for me.
A fun little role, as I recall.
Playing the same role he played in Jackie Brown, which is cool. Ray Nicolette.
Okay, that's literally
the same character. Yeah, same character, same universe. He wouldn't do anything until 2004 after this movie. So he basically was doing like very small roles, like uncredited roles between this and 2004, which was a direct-to-video thriller called Quicksand, which doesn't sound real.
Man, he was washed up.
Yeah, he was washed up. But then, surprise, he makes this shitty horror movie in 2005 called White Noise, which gets released in like January, I think, which they were really just trying to get it off the books. It cost like $5 million to make. It made like $90 million. Ended up being a sleeper hit and gave him another shot, even though I said critics hated this movie. I've never seen it, but I remember it. I remember it being kind of
Same here. I didn't see it, but I associate him with it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be just like something to pay the bills, and I guess ended up being a hit. I personally consider the other guy Guys, like his kind of big comeback.
Okay.
His role in The Other Guys is just phenomenal. One of my favorite comedic performances in a movie ever. He plays the chief who also works at Bed Bath & Beyond, the chief of police.
Oh.
He's great in it.
I saw The
forgot
Other
about
Guys
that movie.
once, and people quote it so often and reference so many things from it. I really got to go back to that.
I think it is the best Will Ferrell comedy. And like I say that as someone who loves Anchorman
I
deeply
agree.
because, I was just
Okay.
the right age to quote it constantly. And Keaton is a big reason why I love that movie so much because he keeps maybe inadvertently, but definitely on purpose quoting TLC in his speeches.
Right.
And then everyone calls him out on it, but he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who TLC is.
You showed me that.
But they
You
get
showed
more
me
and
that
more specific.
before.
Yeah, it's so good.
I got to watch that again. I have not given it its due.
And then he made Birdman in 2014, whatever that long title is.
Right.
I think, did he win an Oscar for that? I know Birdman won the Oscar, but did he win an Oscar?
He won
You
Best
know what?
Actor,
Let me look it
I
up real
think.
quick.
Did he?
I think you're right. Which he's really good in that. Birdman's a movie like I'll never watch again, but I think
Yes.
he's quite good in it.
I saw it on an
He
airplane.
won Golden Globe and got the Oscar nom, but he won the Golden Globe for Best Actor.
Okay. Who won Best Actor in a Leading Role in 2015? Let's see.
I have to know too.
Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything.
Oh,
Kiss my ass.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow, they gave Gyllenhaal all right, Gyllenhaal should have won it for Nightcrawler because that's a fucking insane performance. You guys seen Nightcrawler lately?
Oh, I love that movie.
no.
It's so good. Okay. And then he made Spotlight in 2015, which he had a kind of a smaller role. And that's really like Ruffalo's movie, but he was good in it. And it was a big prestige play. That also won Best Picture. So he's in back-to-back
Oh,
Best
yeah.
Picture winners. That kind of got him
Yeah.
back on track. He's making moves again. He's in the MCU with the Spider-Man movies. He's going to be Batman again in the Flash movie. He was Batman in the Batgirl
Oh.
movie, which got shelved
R.I.P.
and is just never coming out. But
Oh.
yeah, so he's a bona fide movie star again. And good for him because he seems delightful.
Yeah.
He's a fun guy to see in a
I like
movie.
him.
Let's bring it down a notch, cue up the sadness. So Kelly Preston was coming off Jerry Maguire, Nothing to Lose, which is that Tim Robbins and Martin Lawrence movie that I inexplicably love, and
Okay.
the Eddie Murphy god-awful piece of dog shit, Holy Man.
Okay.
So she wasn't doing like great work before. This was a smaller role in Maguire, but she was doing stuff. She's, of course, married to John Travolta, so she worked with him a lot. She was in Battlefield Earth, Old Dogs, Sky High, and most recently, Gotti,
Okay.
coming soon to Blast Zone near you.
All right.
She worked steadily, but not in anything prestigious, just staying busy. But she sadly passed away on July 12th, 2020, after a battle with breast cancer.
Yeah, I was very sad to hear that. I guess I knew her name and I knew her as being married to Travolta, and I couldn't have placed a lot of things she was in, but I looked her up when I saw her in this. I'm like, I must have seen her in things, and then I saw the bad news. And
We didn't talk about her a lot in this, but she's not bad in it at all. She does as much as she can with the role.
yeah, she's fine. She definitely doesn't bring the movie down at all.
Mark Addy is Bobby B.
Does anyone
Love
call it Bobby
Bobby
B?
B.
Did you invent that, or is that a thing?
No, that's like a Reddit thing, I think,
Okay.
because I'm on the Song of Ice and Fire subreddit.
Okay, you're deep in this, Stu.
And anytime people talk about Robert Baratheon, he's Bobby B. I did not make this up, but maybe I'm popularizing it for a new group of people, which would be
Yeah,
great.
for me, you are.
Haley, were you familiar with the Bobby B nickname?
I was not. I wish I would have known about it
You're going to
sooner.
start using it, right?
Oh, yeah. I
Wait, did
talked
you
about
watch Game of Thrones?
I watched like the first 2 seasons, so I at least saw Mark Addy's whole arc.
Okay.
So
Sure.
I stayed for
Yeah.
Bobby B.
Well, you only had to watch like the first 6 episodes to
Yeah,
get his whole
that's true.
arc. Unfortunately, he pieces out early and
Yeah, good for
a
him.
little more of him. But yeah, got out while the getting was good. But he's still working. He does theater, he does TV, he does movies. He was in Barney's Version, which was a critically acclaimed movie from 2015. He was in the Ridley Scott Robin Hood playing Friar Tuck, which is just dynamite casting.
Yes.
And he played, as we mentioned, Fred Flintstone in The Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas, coming soon to a Haley
No.
Blasone episode near you.
Oh,
after we
man.
give her one good movie, and then we got to
Yes.
come to the Flintstones.
Space them out. Space it out.
And then I teased this, but Joseph Cross, who plays Charlie in this movie, still working. He made the transition to adult star, not that kind of adult star, just like a grown-up star. I want to be clear here. He's been in some pretty prestigious movies: Flags of Our Fathers, Running with Scissors, Milk, Lincoln, Mank, and Licorice Pizza. He also was on Big Little Lies and Mindhunter, the
Ooh.
David Fincher Netflix serial killer show, which I rather
That was
enjoyed. So those are
good.
recent high-level things that he's been in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all prestige all across the board with that list, unless you left out another.
Those are
cheesy-
selected credits. Yeah. let's
I
not-
did, but that's a long list. This is not just 2 things. This is a ton of stuff.
Sure, he's been in
big.
some clunkers, yeah, but that's his selected filmography that I chose.
I feel
to,
like we discovered him in this movie, and then look at him. Look where he is now.
He was born a few days before me in one state over, so maybe we could have been friends in another
Wow.
life.
Oh, would have
Yeah.
been fun.
I'm trying to find something shitty he's been in. Hold on, just so I can.
Bring
Make
him down.
yourself
Oh, he was in
better.
that. He was in that Diane Lane hacker drama, Untraceable.
Oh,
Remember
geez.
that? That movie sucks.
Come on, Joseph.
Get it together, man. Honestly, that's the only bad thing he's been in.
Okay.
Why are you so good? Why are you so
Yeah.
good, Joseph? And that's Jack Frost. I don't have anything else to say about this movie. Do you guys?
I just had one question for both of
Oh,
you.
hit me with it.
Did you cry at the end of the movie?
Tears of happiness that this movie is over.
Okay. I was wondering.
Did you?
Maybe.
You pleading the
It's
fifth?
possible.
I don't blame you. I didn't cry, but there were a couple moments. It doesn't take much. It takes 2 lines of sentimental dialogue to establish what if this was a real life thing worth crying about, and then I
Yes.
start to choke up. So I hear you.
That's exactly what happened to
Okay.
me. And it's like I forgot everything that I had just watched. And I saw that scene on its own. And I'm like, you know what? This is worth crying about. I'm just trying to flex.
I see where you guys are
guess.
coming from. Yeah, I was being pessimistic, and I'm a dad, so you think this one would have got to me, but no. It's
You're not going to
I'm
turn
a
into a
perfect
snowman
dad. I'm
anytime
not like
soon.
no. I'm not an absentee piece of shit. So I was like, I don't relate to this character at all.
You're not chucking stinky old harmonicas at your kids left and right.
Take this. It used to be mine. I think I found it in the trash. So Ian, what was your closing thoughts on Jack Frost? Hit me with him.
Well, you know, if you let down your barriers for a minute, a movie can get to you, even a really bad one. And you know how I am on second watches. And I didn't even do a full second watch. But as I was going through the scenes, I was like, wait a minute. Now I see why the filmmakers thought this would work. They were wrong. But once you get past the off-putting parts of it, of which come at you hard and fast in this movie and take you out of it, I'm like, actually, they did set up all this stuff and they paid it off. It's just, it doesn't really work. It's still hard to see why they spent $85 million or whatever they spent on it. But it's like, I had a little more sympathy for the filmmakers and just why they thought they could pull this off.
Yeah, I think
That's very fair.
I'm not saying that the Tim Allen Santa Claus is like a laugh riot, but I just think they dumbed this movie down too much to a very young audience without remembering that you need the parents to be willing to go back and bring the kids back to the theater, because people used to go to the theater multiple times, which is how these movies would make all this money.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot here to entice a parent to be like, let's go see Jack Frost again. Sure, it'll keep you in air conditioning for 2 hours or whatever. They forgot an important aspect of these type of movies, which is like, need something for the grown-ups.
It feels like a TV movie production. This is just is there an equivalent to the Hallmark Channel for kids? There's just like sappy kids movies with like a little bit of lightheartedness in the middle.
Like the Disney Channel makes movies, I think, right?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Disney Channel original movies. This is DCOM material, 100%.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe that's why I liked it, because it kind of reminded me of that.
Oh,
Right. Haley was getting flashbacks to her childhood. Not the snowman dad parts, just like
Yeah, no.
the type of movie this is. Haley, let the people know where they can find you if they would like to follow you for more fun takes on movies and other things.
Of course, you can find me at the next episode of Blast Zone, whenever that happens, whatever good movie I be on. And then also Twitter at 2Saddington. You know, Paddington 3 is in production, so hopefully I can ramp up my Twitter account when we finally get to see that movie. And hopefully it's not a bomb so that it doesn't have to be discussed here.
I can't
No.
imagine Paddington 3 being a bomb. Those movies are well loved. I'm confident. We won't, but maybe we could do a bonus episode to talk about Paddington 3 just because it'll be fun one day. Thank you guys so much for, I didn't even tell you what the next movie is. So we're going to take next week off because it's Christmas.
Yeah.
And come back in 2 weeks with a doozy, though. We're kicking off the new year in a big way. So we're
Big
excited
time.
for 2023. We got big things coming. We're going to be doing The Princess Bride in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So get
Doesn't get
ready for
bigger.
that.
I mean,
Doesn't,
That's exciting.
yeah, and the types of movies we've covered, the cultural impact and footprint that the movies we cover have, The Princess Bride's got to be up there. I haven't seen it in years. I'm excited to revisit it.
Me too. Same here. Because a movie, I'm going to spend the next
Yeah,
2
you're-
weeks just trying to prepare to handle I don't even know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you all right, man?
I got to sign off this podcast.
He's just so excited.
I'm losing it.
Thank you guys. I understand why. Ian just, you can take a chill pill. I got it from here.
I overheated.
Ian's having a stroke. Thank you guys for listening. Please remember, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast if you can. We appreciate it. Helps new listeners find us, I think. If not, it makes us feel good on the inside. Follow us on Twitter at BlastZonePod. Email us, blastzonepod@gmail.com. Any movie suggestions, questions, feedback, just want to chat. We'll get back to you.
Chat us up.
See you next time in the Blast Zone.
See you next time in the Blast Zone.
See